Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 113th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm great, Cameron. You would consider us good friends?
Oh, I have for the last 113 episodes.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Okay. That's good to know.
Really good friends.
I'm glad we're having this conversation now.
Never really thought about it.
You doing great?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. We got a winning streak going. Christian McCaffrey's coming back, folks.
It's a good time for you. It's a good time for Mizzou fans in general. It's a good time to be alive.
Oh yeah. Weather could be better.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of lied in the intro when I said it was beautiful.
I thought you might say that.
Yeah.
But it is pretty cold and rainy.
We had those Block M helmets.
Ooh, it's beautiful.
We'll talk about that in a sec.
Gorgeous.
We'll talk about that second win in a row in a minute. First, we're going to talk about some news. Just a couple items today. And actually, all I have are two transfer announcements. Well, not really. One transfer announcement. Aubry Miller is transferring. He has entered the portal. He was already opting out. Somebody else already did this too. I can't remember who it was. Opted out and then transferred. It was CJ Boone. So
thank you for remembering.
Yes.
Because I couldn't think off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, we talked about Aubry Miller a month ago whenever he decided to opt out. Kind of a guy that we had high hopes for coming in and never really lived up to those expectations. Just a lot of good players in front of him the whole time he was here, and he dealt with a lot of injuries and stuff. So hopefully he's able to go find some playing time somewhere.
And wide receiver Maurice Massey, it was announced on Twitter is where I saw it first that he was arrested and then quickly dismissed from the football program. I believe it was an assault charge is what he was being arrested for. That's not good. So he was already opting out as well.
He gone.
He won't be back.
He will not be back.
Hopefully he's okay. Hopefully
whoever he assaulted is okay.
Yes, all of that. Never like to see anything even close to that sort of thing. So it is unfortunate, but obviously we don't know any details about any of it. All we know is the football side of things. He will not be returning to Mizzou. This other news is related to the Kentucky game. Spoiler alert, it was good for these players. Nick Bolton was named SEC Defensive Player of the Week. Case Cook was named SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week. Do you know what those two players have in common, Kyle?
Case Cook and Nick Bolton?
Yes.
I can think of a few things, but probably not what you're thinking of. Go ahead.
They are both on the Cameron Mizzou football 7-on-7 team.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, I have Micah Wilson.
True. Yeah. The dual threat. Yeah, and also neither one of us have Connor Bazelak.
True.
My quarterback is riding the bench for Mizzou football. So
yeah, that's what I should have asked you. It's like, well, what's your quarterback doing these days?
Yeah. Quarterback situation not so good. But we got SEC Defensive Player of the Week and Offensive Lineman of the Week.
Nick Bolton's good. We predicted that.
Yes, that was one of our hotter takes of the preseason, was the fact that Nick Bolton was going to be good this year.
Yeah, his stats weren't quite what they actually have been earlier this season. I think he had like 7 or 8 tackles, but that's because Kentucky only ran like 30-something plays.
Yeah.
So that's like a third of the plays he was getting a tackle. That's pretty good.
They said in the broadcast he had 17 tackles against Tennessee.
Yeah.
But they ran the ball like 58,000 times, I think. Yeah. So it gave him plenty of opportunities. Let's see here. Let's just jump right into that Kentucky game. You got any other news we need to hit?
I don't think so.
All right. So before we get to the actual game, let's talk about those helmets, because that was a surprise. It looked really good. What was the whole lineup we had? Were we black pants, gold jersey?
I think so.
Block M helmet?
Yeah.
reverse those other two. We already did the gold pants this year, which that's a fan favorite. I would have liked to have seen them put it all together. I have this image in my head of just that classic, what to me is the classic look. I feel like I can picture Chase Daniel, Jeremy Maclin, Blaine Gabbert, those three guys off the top of my head with the gold pants, black jersey, block M helmet. I kind of wish they would have just put it all together.
Is the M a little bit like smaller or a little bit different than it used to be, like maybe 10 years ago?
I don't know. Looked pretty close. Maybe just like a slightly different gold, maybe.
Yeah. How do you feel about the all whites? I always think those like look really cool.
Yeah.
Maybe for like one game a year or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I could really find much fault in any of the uniform combinations since 2016 or so.
Yeah, I'm usually, I don't really care all that much, to be honest, but I think they always look pretty good.
Yeah. And I liked some of the unpopular ones in like 2013, 2014 when they first made the switch to the Tiger, SEC.
I thought it looked really cool.
And even some of the like looking back on some of those jerseys with like the gray shoulders that were a different color, some of those I'm like, yeah, I can see that now we're at a better place, but I was totally fine with those at the time, and I don't like cringe at them or anything. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely like where we are right now with the uniforms.
It was nice.
And yeah, the last few seasons I think have been top notch. I'd put them up against any school.
Wow.
And I'd choose them over any school. Shocker.
We know you like that logo.
Oh, yeah.
So do I.
Yeah. All right, this Kentucky game. I don't want to brag too much, but I predicted this low-scoring affair. I just had the scores flipped a little bit. First 5 possessions of this game were punts. Speaking of punts, Cade Musser.
Yes, Cade.
Was back there fielding these punts. And I think like every single one of them was a fair catch.
No, I think so. No turnovers.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So maybe
he might have won that job.
We maybe found our guy there that can just wave his hand and catch the ball.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
After the punt fest, Mizzou went on a 13-play, 66-yard touchdown drive featuring Larry Roundtree. He punched it in at the end, got Damon Hazelton involved early. Bazelak looked good. And after kind of a slow start for both offenses, Missouri's offense picked it up, and they were moving the ball. Yeah. And especially moving the ball on the ground with Larry Roundtree. They just kept feeding him, and they were perfectly content all game with just taking what the defense would give them and slowly, methodically, but successfully moving the ball down the field.
Yeah, it was clear they respected Kentucky's defense coming in. Especially Bazelak, I think that was a concern that I had. How would he perform against a better defense? And obviously, we knew that he could throw for 400 yards against a terrible defense. We knew that. But could he come in and accept that he's not going to be the focal point of the offensive plan and have the discipline to not just throw deep, into double coverage or something like that? Could he make good decisions against a really good defense? And he absolutely proved that he could do that.
Well, the very first play, they tried the flea flicker again. And I feel like when I saw it happening, I was like, oh, my gosh. Like
again?
You're asking for trouble. Like, he's just going to bomb it no matter what. I feel like this play is set up for that long pass. And apparently it wasn't there, and it didn't faze him. He just turned to the sideline and threw it for a short gain. And that, I don't know, that just makes me feel so good when I see that. That it's like I start panicking a little bit when I am just doing the Mizzou fan thing of like looking ahead of how can this one play go wrong. Right. And when you have a flea flicker, you've got lots of time for your brain to be like, uh-oh. And you can imagine him just throwing that deep ball no matter what, because it's a flea flicker, and that's what you do. And he just didn't. He just threw it to the sideline, and everything was fine.
Right. I mean, they always talk about his calmness and his poise, but I truly think that he's shown a lot of maturity as a young quarterback, and he's making decisions that I'm not sure Drew Lock ever could make, and just like take the easy route, just hit you don't have to chuck it deep. And I think he came into the game knowing Kentucky has forced a lot of interceptions this year up to this point. And I think he even mentioned it in his post game presser. But he just looked very much like, I'm going to make the smart pass all game, and that's what he did.
Yeah, you can be poised and calm and still make bad decisions. So him looking as good as he normally does, but then also backing it up with the decision making. I'm trying not to get too excited over here, but
I think I am excited.
Oh.
I think I'm officially excited.
Yeah, there were half a dozen plays in this game that he made with his arm through the air in tough situations that we're just not really used to seeing. Like you said, even Drew Lock, it was very boom or bust at times with him, where if you got into like a 3rd and 7 situation, it was like, well, we're either gonna like take the top off and score a touchdown here, or we're gonna be punting for like the 5th time this game. And
Drew Lock still kind of does that. Obviously the Broncos played the Chiefs this past week, so I was watching that pretty closely, and he's still kind of that way. He's very boom or bust. He likes the big plays, and that's what makes him really exciting to watch. But sometimes, like you said, those 3rd and intermediate plays can be a little frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, Connor Bazelak, I'm really impressed with him. I'm officially very excited after seeing 2 back-to-back great performances from him in totally different ways. Yeah. I think I'm excited now. against
a legitimately good defense in Kentucky. Now, Bazelak didn't like do anything too incredibly crazy. Let me pull up the stats here. 200 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but 21 of 30 throwing.
Right.
So still efficient, still finding his guys. What'd you think of Hazleton getting involved early? And, you would have never known that he, or Kiki Chisholm for that matter, you would have never really known watching this game that there was any kind of like depth chart, position battle controversy happening behind the scenes.
We'll talk about this a little bit in a minute about Coach Drinkwitz and his press conferences, but I mean, he has no problem like completely lying on the depth chart, and maybe that was a little bit of motivation, and maybe Hazleton did something during the week to prove that he is ready to earn his starting spot back. But he's listed as 3rd string on the depth chart, and then he's obviously the go-to receiver all game.
Yeah, he must have had some good blocks in practice.
There you go.
You got a block to get the rock or something like that.
Yeah, but I was happy to see him obviously be involved early and often. He's probably the best playmaker in our wide receiver room.
Jalen Knox would have something to say about that.
Yeah. They're different kind of receivers, but definitely I definitely don't want to discredit Jalen Knox.
Hazleton in this one, 6 receptions for 51 yards. Obviously, no wide receivers found the end zone. Bazelak didn't have a touchdown pass. So Mizzou took the lead early, 7-0 with that 13-play drive. Kentucky answered with a field goal. Mizzou answered back with a field goal. And so the halftime score was 10-3 Missouri. And I think I was impressed with the defense. They at some point in here, Terry Wilson was benched.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if I'm a Kentucky fan, I think I'm maybe pretty upset with that decision looking back on that game. Now, maybe he doesn't come back the way he did and have some success if it weren't for that. But going into halftime, Missouri's defense was just destroying Kentucky. They could, and I always hesitate, especially when Missouri's playing a conference game against a competent opponent, to give all the praise to the defense and not just say, some of that was just Kentucky not playing well at all on offense. So there was just the right amount of both of those things for Missouri to hold them to 3 points in the first half.
Yeah.
And like 20 yards of offense.
Yeah. But Kentucky just literally was not a threat at all in this game. And did the non-field goal attempt happen before halftime? I feel like I remember thinking the lead should be bigger now than it is.
When
did
that happened? Missouri's first possession after halftime.
Yeah, it's just nothing they were doing was working.
Missouri did, right before halftime, get into the red zone, get all the way to the goal line, and have to settle for a field goal.
Okay.
They had it, first and goal at the Kentucky 1 yard line. Bazelak tried to run it in, couldn't get it. Incomplete pass. And then they ran out of time. It was kind of bad clock management there at the very end of the first half. And they had to settle for a field goal when they should have. They had to settle for a field goal on third down when they should have had time to get one more play off from the 1.
Yep, you're right. I remember that now. And Coach in his halftime interview literally just flat out said, I made some errors in my time management, and that was my bad. We should have scored a touchdown there.
Yeah. That's refreshing.
That's refreshing because he was right. At 100%.
All the fans were thinking it, and then you can't really be too terribly mad at him when he's like, yeah, I messed up there. You're like, oh, okay. He realizes.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, Kentucky was just that way the whole game. They had one successful play, and we talked about it last week, where that's what they'll try to do is kind of lull you to sleep and then hit you with the big play, and that's what they did. But that was truly one of the only successful plays they had on offense the entire game. And, I think they only ran like 36 plays.
Yeah.
Roundtree has 37 carries in the game. Roundtree has more carries than Kentucky ran plays.
Yeah.
I mean, Missouri was absolutely suffocating and dominant at every facet of the game.
Yeah, so that drive you were referencing that happened right after halftime, that was an interesting one. I honestly, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. I don't think I've ever seen a 21 play drive.
10 minutes long.
Yeah. They go 66 yards, 21 plays. I think get multiple fourth down conversions.
Yes.
And that was another thing, that Missouri was just not scared of Kentucky's offense whatsoever. And they were being ultra aggressive in on fourth down situations. However, they get down into the red zone and have an opportunity to put points on the board with a field goal. And I know, hindsight is always 20/20.
You know what the analytics say.
Yeah. I was begging them to kick the field goal when they got to fourth down in the red zone. And I just felt like, because that would have made it a 2-score game, and it would have just made me as a fan so much more comfortable.
Yeah. In a low-scoring game like that, absolutely, I think you want to make it a 2-score game late in the third quarter or whatever it was. On that drive, I actually went back and looked through the statistics. On that drive, they converted on a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10, 4th and 4, 3rd and 2, 4th and 6, and 3rd and 1. And I mean the entire drive was just masterful from the get-go, and they did exactly what they wanted to do the entire game. I mean, they drained the clock, they controlled the time of possession, they converted on every 3rd and 4th down. They were really aggressive, and I feel like Coach just he knew that drive was just a thing of beauty, and I think he got tantalized by finishing off with a touchdown.
Yes.
And he admitted later after the game that was a poor decision.
Yeah.
And they should have kicked.
Yeah. He made 2 mistakes in this game and owned them immediately after each half. I was about to correct you. You said late third quarter, and I was like, late third quarter is the first. It was
literally the first drive of the third quarter.
Yet it was also late in the third quarter when it finished. So
yes.
I was like, late in the third quarter? But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9 minutes and 35 seconds. And the announcers were remarking on it the whole time, like, this is not something you see every day,
especially in college football too. I feel like it's just such more up tempo and
oh yeah, and it seems like at the college level, just weird stuff happens. It's astonishing that a penalty didn't just ruin the drive for them, or they just fumble the ball or something, or
just not convert on a 4th and 6.
Yeah. Or one of these plays go for a touchdown at some point.
Right.
None of that happened, where they just slowly kept moving the ball down the field.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to mention the penalties in this game were pretty frustrating at times, where, first of all, Kentucky just didn't commit any, apparently, for a really long time. But there were some penalties by Missouri players that were just like, oh, man, just terrible timing, where they couldn't really ever deliver that kill shot that I wanted so bad. And that's probably went into Drinkwitz thinking on that drive that ended in 0 points, where he was just thinking, man, if we can put this in the end zone here, that's going to be demoralizing for Kentucky, and we can maybe just ride that score to the end of the game.
Mm-hmm. In some post-game interviews, I think it was Roundtree that said this, and it was probably about that drive. Something I've never really thought about, especially being somebody that stopped playing football after like 8th grade, but just the human element of football that you don't really think about when you're watching. But he mentioned he could tell that they were effective and they were going to win the game based on the look of the Kentucky's defenders, based on the look in their eyes. He could tell that they were beaten, they were demoralized, they were tired. They had been on the field the whole game.
Yeah.
And that was such an interesting perspective that I had for some reason I never thought about. Like, I can just tell I'm going to beat you. I'm going to run over you because I can tell you're just sick of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like, playing pickup basketball or something, and you're just like, man, this dude is winded and out of shape, and I'm going to score on him whenever I want.
Yeah.
It's the same concept, I guess. But you're right, though. You just never think about that these players are on the field. They're feeling these guys try to tackle them or not get through blocks and stuff like that. And just, if you're a team that's kind of sensing that you've got the upper hand for whatever reason, these guys didn't come to play, that's got to be a great feeling. And when you put it all together and execute knowing that, then you end up with a win.
Mm-hmm. Missouri's time of possession in this game was like 43 minutes to Kentucky's a lot less.
Yeah.
Let me look it up really quick.
Like 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah. Kentucky 16 minutes.
Man.
Total yards, Missouri 421, Kentucky 145. It's honestly astonishing that Missouri only won this game by 10 points.
Yeah.
When you look at truly like how badly they beat them in every way, this game really should have been not as close score-wise.
Yeah. And but Kentucky does have a decent defense to where, they did force Missouri to kind of take little bits at a time as far as yardage goes.
Mm-hmm. And they were really good in the red zone too.
Yeah.
Red zone defense.
Yeah. And we were talking about that during the game, that no matter what Missouri was doing, once you got into the red zone, it was a challenge still every single time to get points.
Less ground to cover.
That's what they say. Terry Wilson was back, folks, at some point, and late in the game, Kentucky did answer with a touchdown of their own. They kind of made it look a little too easy there on that touchdown drive. I think it was like a 27-yard pass that was the final score of that drive. So they started maybe trying to mount a little bit of a comeback. Missouri on their next drive didn't do anything, punted the ball, and it was kind of making me think like, okay, we just drove for 87 minutes and got 0 points. Kentucky answers with a touchdown. They've got some momentum.
We could have used that field goal earlier.
Yes, we're punting the ball back now, only up one score, but Kentucky just went 3 and out. Missouri's defense stepped up, and I don't know, it's so weird when you're scarred by just watching teams mount comebacks and execute late in games, to watch Missouri just calmly force the 3 and out against an offense that just scored pretty easily on them.
We're used to seeing Missouri completely fold in that situation.
Missouri did then make a field goal to make it 20-10 and sealed the deal with a late Kentucky fumble. And then Missouri just ran out the clock. So 20-10 was the final. Missouri, what's their record now? 2-2. Are they the best 2-2 team in the country?
I don't know if I'm ready to say that, but I'd have to see a list of who else is 2-2. But I actually do think Missouri is a top 25 team in the country right now. I think that they are. I understand why they are not, why they don't have a number next to their name right now, but I really do think that they're good enough to be considered for that right now. And I don't know. I was really impressed by by what they have accomplished in the last 2 weeks. The contrast of the teams they played, the contrast of the plan that they had going into these games are just night and day.
Yeah.
And how they executed so well both times. I mean, I was blown away.
Yeah.
By the way they executed and by the ability of the players and the coaches to not only come up with this plan but to execute it perfectly was fantastic.
Yeah, in the moment I was trying to decide. Obviously the LSU win was special, but I was almost more happy about the outlook of this season. And maybe that's easy to say because now it's a second win instead of just one win, but it sounds dumb the more I go into it. Of course, you're going to be more excited the more you win, but I don't know. There was something about showing that this wasn't a one-time thing against a bad LSU defense. Yeah. You know, coming back against a decent Kentucky team, their strength is defense.
Winning in two different kind of ways, I think, is really encouraging.
And not only that, completely opposite ways.
Yeah. I honestly can't say enough about how happy I am that Coach Drinkwitz is leading this program right now, because I'm not sure I've seen like many more impressive performances from a coaching staff and what they've done this season. The expectations of what we had coming in and what they are now are really, really different in a good way. And you know, we knew Coach Drinkwitz could recruit. We were excited about what he'd done on the recruiting trail, but now I truly feel like he is a very capable coach and in-game coach. He owns his mistakes, but just the very noticeable plan coming into the game and then the execution, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit previewing the game, what we would hope to see from Missouri. You know, what could they do to win this game? And they basically just went out and did everything that we talked about that would allow them to be in the driver's seat.
They basically were Kentucky, except better than Kentucky is Kentucky.
Yeah.
They played their game, and they did it better.
And I specifically said in the preview that I was worried that that's the only thing you can do in this matchup if you're Missouri. I said you have to beat Kentucky at their own game.
Yeah.
And I was very skeptical that they would be able to do that. They proved me wrong.
There are, including Missouri, 5 2-2 teams in college football.
Wow. Well, this is going to be easy then.
Okay.
3 in Power 5 conferences, and all 3 of them are in the SEC.
Oh, my gosh. Really? Okay, so who were the other SEC teams?
LSU and Arkansas. So
Well,
I guess they are then.
Easy.
The other 2 are Charlotte and Georgia State.
Well, I don't know anything about them, so
Me neither.
They
Will
suck.
Healy at Charlotte.
Oh, we do know
He
that.
was considered for the, I don't know how much he was considered. His name was floating about.
Is he still there?
Yeah, I think he is. Let's talk about LSU for a second really quick. They looked like relevant again this past week. They destroyed
The team they played.
somebody.
South Carolina.
Thank
yeah.
you. They destroyed South Carolina, and with their backup quarterback playing.
I'm pretty sure I picked South Carolina.
Yeah, you did. Mike Bobo. I'll let you down. We'll get to that later. But LSU looked like a team that could completely fold. I mean, they've got some off-the-field stuff going on. I don't know how much that affects players in a game, but that's certainly something that could be a distraction. They just got beat by Missouri, you know. And so I thought that them kind of just falling off the map this season was completely a possibility, and they looked like a pretty good team.
Yep.
So I think that makes Missouri's win look even better, like potentially looks better now than it did then.
Yeah, keep winning LSU. Got to talk about Larry Roundtree a little bit more.
I would love to talk about Larry Roundtree.
He is now second all-time in Mizzou history for running back rushing yards for a career. So we fully expect him to be the new running back career rushing leader in Mizzou history. Nobody's ever going to touch Brad Smith. I was looking at I'm going to go off on a little bit of sidebar here. NCAA 14 video game. I made Christian McCaffrey, put him on Stanford,
Okay.
of course, and junior season broke all the records. 3,000 total yards, 37 touchdowns. Nuts.
It's a good season.
But I noticed, I'm creeping up on the all-time rushing yards leader in NCAA football history. And it's like 5,000 something. Brad Smith, 4,289 rushing yards in his career. I meant to look up where that sits all time. That's just nuts.
You know, we were obviously pretty young when Brad Smith was playing at Mizzou. I'm not sure, at least I personally, I'm not sure I truly understand how good Brad Smith was. Like, how incredibly good he was as the quarterback.
Yeah.
4,000 rushing yards.
Yeah, that's nuts.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just never see that.
Yeah.
And also that kind of goes hand in hand with, having 4 full seasons as a starter.
Right.
And a coaching staff that would just let you loose.
Right. He was truly a program changer for, like,
do you remember watching him play for the Jets?
A little bit.
He played for the Jets for a little while, and I think now...
As a wide receiver, right?
Yeah. And I think he kind of was a punt return specialist for a little while. They've got a Smith who's number 16 that's a wide receiver now. And I've seen a couple highlights of him and been like, oh my gosh, Brad Smith
He's back.
Still doing it. Anyway, Larry Roundtree, he had a couple runs where it was like, oh man, he could have just broken that for a touchdown and just barely got tripped up, like at the linebacker level. But he looked really good. There was one moment late in the game where he was waving off a sub. He kind of got up slow, and you could tell the coach. They even showed Drinkwitz, I think, motioning for him, "Are you good? No, get out of here, get out of here." Mm-hmm. And he was like, "No, I'm staying in." But the coaching staff ended up having their way, and Beatty went in for that play. But yeah, he wanted every snap. He wanted every carry. And,
37.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anything like that. I just really appreciate, I guess, Larry Roundtree, not only his ability to be good at football, but just seemingly his leadership qualities, his durability. I mean, these are some intangibles that maybe go unnoticed sometimes, but he and Nick Bolton both are just incredible leaders for this team. It's just gonna sound really sunshine pumpy just this entire episode, but I don't know. I guess I'm really thankful for those guys and what they mean to the team. And obviously it's going to be sad to see both of them probably leave after this season, but whether they're playing football or whatever the case is, they're just some really special guys, and I'm really happy they're on Mizzou's team.
Yeah. The NFL should probably up the age 1 year, so Nick Bolton has to come back to Missouri.
There you go.
Just kidding. Go make some money.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me just look over the box score, make sure I didn't miss anything worth talking about. Jalen Knox looking good as usual this season.
Tyler Beatty's a great change of pace too. I mean, even when Larry Roundtree was out of the game, it felt like there wasn't a whole lot of drop off.
Yeah,
and we've known that.
It's so crazy that that's just an interesting stat here. Missouri's defense, whole team, 27 total tackles. Kentucky's defense, 81 tackles.
Nick Bolton had 7 of the 27.
Yeah. And 1 of the 2 tackles for loss. And a quarterback hurry.
I just I can't say it enough. I've never seen a game like that before, where one team just dominates so much in every way.
Yeah, including the final score. I agree with you. I feel like I've seen a couple Mizzou games. I'm specifically thinking of one against South Carolina where they dominated every aspect of the game except maybe turnovers, and ended up losing. And it was just
Was that the monsoon year?
I can't remember. I think it was the Deebo Samuel year.
Where he returned the kickoff and it was just awful after that.
Yeah. But I feel like obviously there's a special team score, so that's not the offense doing anything.
And Eli Drinkwood's team would have bounced back.
I sure hope so. It seems like it.
I hate that it always comes to this, but in my mind, I always think Barry Odom team could never. could never like orchestrate this plan, bounce back from some of the things we bounce back. It's just last year's team could never do some of the things we've already seen in 4 games this year. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. Absolutely not wrong. How long do we have one Coach Walters in Missouri?
How long have we had him?
Yeah. How long will we have him?
Oh,
I'm scared. I hope that he just. I know he's probably perfectly capable of being a head coach. I hope that he just really likes being a defensive coordinator. There's a few guys out there that really love being a coordinator, really love their side of the ball.
I mean, he's always been seen as an up-and-comer, I think. And
there was those rumors about him going home to Colorado this past offseason.
That's true. It was a great move to retain him, and I thought that at the time, too, that it was great to have some consistency on the part of our team that was already good.
Yeah, he was probably the only person on the coaching staff that I was like, I will be pretty upset about losing him.
Yeah.
And there were some other guys that we retained that I was happy about.
Right.
But there was nobody else that I was like just going to be a little bit distraught to see them going elsewhere.
Yeah, barring like Mizzou's defense somehow takes a step back, I would not be surprised to see him leave really at any point after this season, but hopefully not.
Yeah. Producer Cameron, you got some stats for us?
Yeah. Brad Smith is number 99 on the all-time college football rushing list.
How many players have over 5,000 rushing yards? A lot?
25.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of those in the top 100 are quarterbacks.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know. It's obviously pretty stacked up there. And what you got? 100 guys all within 1,000 yards of each other.
I wonder how many rushing yards like Lamar Jackson had. That's like might be kind of a comparable like running quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Ron Dane has 7,100 rushing yards.
What?
Wow.
I guess
That's a lot.
NCAA football video game must be mistaken. Man, I thought that was a first name that you were giving me. Ron Dane. I thought you were about to tell me like Ron Dane Smith.
Rondale Moore.
Yeah, that's probably why. Ron Dane. Congratulations.
But, at number 113 is Lamar Jackson. So
there you go.
Wow.
He had more than Lamar Jackson for whatever that's worth.
Lamar Jackson just like something special about the way he runs. Like he's so elusive.
Yeah. In a not disparaging way, he runs like a running back.
Pretty much.
Or like a punt returner.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's still a good quarterback, so no offense intended.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the only thing that would make this better is if, Missouri could really actually get a number next to their name if they were able to knock off Florida this week.
Well, Dan Mullen said he voted for Missouri to get a number next to their name this week.
Well, he better have.
And that's just some politics probably because obviously you want the team you're playing to be ranked in the top 25. But he may really think that, though.
Yeah, basically put all the entire SEC East minus Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
You could do some real SEC bias and say that they deserve a ranking.
I thought Kentucky might be worthy of a top 25 ranking before this week. I thought they could be ranked coming into the Missouri game.
It's interesting with the way the schedule is this year. None of these teams have had a chance to kind of pad their wins a little bit with some non-conference games. Yeah. So they're all beating each other up so much. But, I mean, every conference is going to have that to some extent, except maybe the Big 12. They had some non-conference games. Maybe the ACC did too. But, it's going to be a weird season for polls and everything. I mean, everything's going to be weird, but...
Oh, yeah. With everybody starting at different times and stuff, it's already been weird.
Yeah. Yeah, there was teams that had played 4 games and others that had played 0 until very recently.
Missouri had 25 votes in the coaches poll.
Oh, others receiving votes.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
They'd be about 36th if all those numbers were counted.
Sounds about right. Well, you will not be able to keep them out of the top 25 if they beat Florida.
That's correct.
Are they going to do it?
Probably not.
Florida's been pretty good. We were both pretty high on them. I mean, pretty much everybody was, with Georgia's quarterback situation, which they've now solved.
Mm-hmm.
Florida was the trendy pick to represent the East in the SEC championship.
Yeah, we both picked that.
They are 2-1 this year. They beat Ole Miss and South Carolina, but lost to Texas A&M at Texas A&M. That was the slightly controversial kind of full stadium game where Dan Mullen wasn't too happy. He's been in the news quite a bit this season already.
He has.
Voicing his opinions on various things. And he was not quiet about the fact that he did not like seeing so many fans at Kyle Field, even though he has 2 players named Kyle on his team.
I got to say, it's really hard for me not to root for them.
Oh, yeah.
Just all those the power of the Kyles, man.
I can understand. Kyle Trask, he's a Heisman candidate. I'll say it.
He's good.
Yeah.
Hot take.
I don't know what other people are saying about him, but he's right at 1,000 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and half of those touchdowns have gone to Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
So the Kyles.
The tight end.
Yeah, tight end.
Yeah, he'll be probably a first-round pick in the NFL draft this year.
He's doing some, like, Alberto type stuff on steroids here. 17 receptions, 7 touchdowns. That's pretty nuts. Yeah. I think he had 4 in one game.
Yeah, their opener against Mississippi or Ole Miss that he had 4 touchdowns. And also 170 yards.
That's pretty good.
That's a lot. Florida really hasn't played a truly really good team yet. They've played Ole Miss, they played Texas A&M, and they've played South Carolina. None of those 3 teams terrify you. Texas A&M obviously was the best team they played, and they lost. I think it'll be interesting. I think I really hold Florida in high standards because of their offensive firepower, but some of the defenses they've played are pretty questionable. And, it'd be really interesting whenever Florida has to play in Alabama or a Georgia or something like that to see how they hold up.
Yeah,
or Missouri.
Yeah, exactly. I wish we could have seen them play LSU because that would have been a common opponent, and we would have had maybe a little bit of insight into how Missouri might fare.
When they do play LSU, they're going to score 70-plus points.
Yeah, they're going to pull a Clemson.
I was just about to say that. They're going to pull a Clemson, Georgia Tech.
Yeah. They play Georgia on November 7th, right? The week after this Mizzou matchup. So, again, would have been nice to see them play them before this. You still kind of, obviously you're scared of their offense, but you got to like Mizzou's chances, just the fact that Missouri has a good defense.
Yeah.
Got to like that a little bit. And you have to like the way the offensive coaching staff has been game planning. We talked about it a ton already. Florida is easily going to be the best team Missouri has played so far. They're going to be, Missouri played Alabama. I forgot about that one. I kind of erased that out of my mind.
Yeah.
But, and also feels like a year ago that they played Alabama.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see what the game plan is for this one because, the past 2 games that Missouri's won, they're playing teams with very discernible weaknesses and exploiting those weaknesses, and they did that very well. Florida doesn't really have weaknesses. They're good in all fronts. They're really good, obviously, in offense, but they're still very good defensively, too. And so the keys to the game aren't quite as obvious as they've been in the past 2 games.
Yeah, I'm looking at how Texas A&M was able to get it done. And in that game, Texas A&M's quarterback threw for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns and was incredibly efficient, 25 of 35. And then their top running back carried the ball 27 times for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's going to have to be more balanced. In LSU, we threw the ball a ton. Against Kentucky, we ran the ball a ton. I think it's going to have to be a more balanced attack because we can't just in some of these other games it just didn't matter. Like we kind of showed our hand and it didn't matter. That's not going to be the case against Florida. Have to get creative. Gonna have to switch it up.
Producer Cameron, on your pick'em sheet, do you have the line for this game?
No.
It opened up as Florida as a pretty big favorite. I don't know what it's at now.
So are you thinking potentially we're looking at some semblance of a shootout?
It's possible. It'll be a lot more high scoring than this past week. That's for sure.
We know Missouri can hang with a team.
Yeah.
Florida is a 13-point favorite.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
I really think Missouri has a really good chance to cover that. I think it will be potentially a pretty close game. What percentage do you give Missouri to pull this off?
If they play 100 times, Missouri wins 30 of them.
I was going to say 25.
30.
Yeah, I think that's fair. A lot is going to be riding on Martez Manuel, Tyree Gillespie. How can we minimize Kyle Pitts in this game? Obviously, Kyle Trask, they're going to score.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. He's going to get his. They have a lot of weapons on offense, but can we, we got burned by LSU's tight end a lot. And so we've played some really good players this year, and those really good players have shown why they're really good players. We haven't really been able to minimize the superstars so far. So I would love to see the Mizzou safety shut down Kyle Pitts. I don't know that you can shut him down, but maybe keep him from scoring multiple touchdowns would be ideal.
Yeah, I was looking still at that A&M game, and he only had 5 receptions for 40-something yards and a touchdown, and they had another receiver go for almost 100. So
you can overcome that.
Yeah, but I don't think that. I think Dan Mullen is a very good offensive coach, and I think Kyle Trask has been incredible. I just don't see how you slow down the passing game completely or very much at all. Yeah. Honestly, if you're Missouri. So I think that Missouri actually doesn't cover the spread. They lose by 14. Something like 34-20.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think they'll probably lose in the 10-point range. It'll probably. I think Florida will score a lot. I think it'll be more like 41-31 or something like that. But I do think Florida wins this game. Am I shocked if Missouri pulls this off? Probably not. But man, if I think I'm encouraged now,
yeah. Oh, geez.
I don't even want to think about it because I don't want to get my hopes up. But it will truly be next dimension if Missouri can pull this off, or really, even do some encouraging things. If they can slow down Florida's offense, I think I'll be really encouraged.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot the offense could do in this game to sway me, Missouri's offense, to make me think anything too terribly different than what I think right now. The defense absolutely could take things to another level if they can show that the LSU game was a fluke and that they're not going to just let teams run up and down the field on them with any regularity. Then I will be very impressed and feel really good about the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And think that, I already think that Missouri should be able to be in every game the rest of the way.
I agree.
If the defense shows up in a special way against Florida, then obviously I'll have even higher hopes.
So Dan Mullen in his press conference earlier this week did not want to disclose who could potentially miss this game for Florida. He said they're going to have 53 players. They've had a lot of COVID issues. They had 6 more players test positive yesterday, I think. I haven't heard anything else about that. So it's very possible that they're without some key guys. We just don't know. He didn't go into those details. Therefore, Coach Drinkwitz did not go into any details about who we have injured. If I'm going to speculate, I think we could be without a couple offensive linemen this week because we had Zeke Powell, I believe, leave the game last week, and I think Larry Borum maybe got banged up a little bit as well. So we could be down a couple offensive linemen. Florida really likes to put the pressure on. Hopefully that doesn't turn into an ugly situation. I hope that our offensive line can continue to hold up like they have been really well so far. But it will be interesting to see who both teams just roll out there on Saturday. Yeah. I don't think that there's going to be any radical changes for either team, but it would not surprise me if Florida's without some starters.
Yeah, as much as I'd like to rail on Dan Mullen for, not really divulging much information, I think as far as with COVID specifically, that's pretty par for the course. I mean,
he cited some medical laws or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. Do I think he's using that as an excuse to not divulge anything? Absolutely. Okay. But at the same time, I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack because it's not like he's just withholding all information. He is, but in a normal season, then yes, I would have a bigger problem with it if he's just like saying, yeah, I'm not telling you anything about this guy's ankle or this guy's shoulder, or, we'll just, if they play, they play. Yep. Then I would have a much bigger problem with it. But I don't know. Is it really necessary for him to detail the COVID situation with his entire roster? Probably not. But
yeah, I'm not mad about it or anything, but
so Coach Drinkwitz kind of doing what he did, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
I won't read too much into it, but I don't know.
Gotta love some coaches with personality, though.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not short on that in this matchup. Did you see Coach Stoops of Kentucky say something like, basically, it was the Mizzou fans took it as him making an excuse that Missouri got an extra week to prepare for Kentucky. He mentioned that he could picture Coach Drinkwitz using that extra week and hearing about the 5-game losing streak to Kentucky, that would really, kind of give him some extra fuel. And he made sure to point out that extra week that he had to really think about Kentucky.
I mean, was it a bad thing for Missouri? No,
but also we didn't know we were playing Kentucky.
Exactly.
That,
right
away.
That's true. They didn't really have the ability to use the whole extra week to prepare for Kentucky specifically.
Yeah. It sounded a little
salty,
little sour grapes, as the kids say.
Yeah. A little bit like Dan
Kids
Mullen.
don't say that. We're both predicting a loss against Florida. That will be the 3rd game in a row that we've predicted a loss. 4th, 5th game in a row that we've predicted a loss.
We predicted a loss against Kentucky.
Yeah.
And they surprised us.
So I say we just predict losses the rest of the way.
There you go.
And
it's all about expectations, right?
Yes. For a Mizzou fan, it very much is. Got to manage those expectations.
Paves the way for pleasant surprises.
Yes. Somehow it doesn't help the heartbreak as much as you would hope, but whatever. I don't know how that works, but Kyle, there was something before we started recording. You said we'll save it. Was that?
Yeah. It's kind of random now in this situation, but I'll still ask you. You mentioned the Big Ten. You mentioned the Big 12 before we started recording, and I've thought about this before.
Yeah.
Would you, as a fan, not as an administrator, as a fan, would you restore the Big 12 and send Mizzou back and all the teams that left? Would you go back to how it was 10 years ago, from an entertainment standpoint?
Yeah, I remember you saying that now. A little peek behind the curtain here. Sometimes before we hit record, we'll start talking about something, and now we have the line "save it." Producer Cameron will say "save it," or one of us will say "save it," and then we'll just be like, "Okay, we got to talk about that when we're actually recording and it's worth something." I legitimately couldn't remember what it was though until you just said it just now. So I'm glad I asked. But I said before we started recording, I would not change it. I would keep it how it went with Missouri in the SEC, and I stand by that. I did think about it a little bit more, and no, I have no desire to go back to make things how they were in the Big 12.
Why is that?
Well, part of it is Missouri is getting to play Kansas anyway. So the thing that I missed most about playing in the Big 12, we hope is going to happen no matter what. At least it's on the books. Even though it's not going to happen this year, it's on the books to happen in basketball. And it's going to happen eventually in football too. So that was the thing I missed most. I absolutely don't miss playing Nebraska, of all people, of all schools.
I'd play him now. Didn't want to 20 years ago.
Sure. Yeah, honestly, I would be happier staying in the, I mean, that's probably just having your cake and eating it too, but staying in the SEC and having some old rivalries renewed from time to time seems like the perfect setup for Missouri moving forward, from a fan standpoint even.
I have this tendency as a person in general to be very nostalgic. You guys probably know that about me. I like to look back on things very fondly, even things that maybe I didn't enjoy in the moment. Like high school is a great example. I remember being in high school. I'm like, I hate this. This is awful. And looking back on it, I'm like, man, those were the days. I didn't have any responsibilities.
Yeah.
Just go home, play video games. Whatever. I miss those days now. Kind of. I look back on them fondly. I think I do this with the Big 12 a little bit. I look back on those days very fondly. We were probably a little bit better in some of the sports than we are now. We've had some rough years in the SEC, but I'm not sure I would totally restore it though. Even though we have a lot of good memories, and I think fondly of some times in the Big 12, but it gets old hearing people say Missouri doesn't belong in the SEC, all that stuff. It really does. It's kind of a troll argument that gets exhausting, but I think Missouri's in a good spot.
Yeah.
And I know some people would probably even argue that Missouri probably belongs in the Big 10 more
than the SEC.
Yeah. And I probably
would have been one of those people that would have thought that made more sense when conference realignment was happening.
Yeah.
But just for me right now to picture Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah.
And as a fan,
you don't want to be in a conference with Texas.
As a fan, I want nothing to do with either one of those programs.
Yeah.
Like, though, I wouldn't mind if Missouri never played those two schools again in anything ever. I would not miss that at all.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think. I mean, anybody listening, you're welcome to tell us we're dumb for not wanting to go back to the Big 12. I understand. I'm sure there's arguments that make sense for wanting to restore how things were back in the day.
Kyle and I are very like-minded, so you might have to
give us the counter argument.
Insert your counter argument below or on Twitter or wherever. You ready to pick some games?
I'm ready.
Take it away, producer Professor Cameron.
Alrighty. So last week you both got 3 points. Exciting. So Kyle has 23 and Cameron has 20. So it's still a 3-point difference.
Did we get all the same points?
No. We picked different games.
You picked Auburn, Cameron. Not Ole Miss. And
Auburn.
You picked Auburn to beat Ole Miss, and that happened. Yeah, I picked Ole Miss, which there was a very controversial call in that game. I don't know if you heard about it. There was like a punt where the Auburn the person receiving the punt, it like bounced and he touched the ball. It like clearly hit his finger, and they reviewed it and everything and said that he didn't touch it. Wow. And so Ole Miss would have recovered and scored a touchdown, but it didn't count. And I think the SEC has come back and said that was an error on the referee's part, and that was like a massive missed call.
How can you get a review?
They
wrong?
Reviewed it. You could see the finger bend back.
How does looking at it days later at the SEC head office, how are they able to determine that in any way that they're not able to by looking at it for a few minutes on the field I don't know who. I
have no idea, but that's really frustrating for Ole Miss. And Lane Kiffin came out publicly, criticized the referees.
I knew this part of it.
Was fined $25,000.
Sheesh.
And then I believe continued to make fun of them even after he was fined on Twitter. He said, "Who has 25,000 pennies?"
Oh, right.
And he did the math wrong, and he said 250,000 pennies, and then he still did the math wrong. And then he corrected himself a third time and said 2.5 million pennies in reference to his fine.
Yeah,
which is great. But anyways, congratulations on your win.
And then the other game was South Carolina and LSU. Kyle picked LSU.
My Bobo. Couldn't get it done for you.
Yeah. Just however I picked the South Carolina game, if you're listening, pick the opposite.
Okay. So this week, our first game is number 5 Georgia at Kentucky. Georgia is a 14.5-point favorite.
Georgia by 1 million.
Yeah, I would have thought the spread would actually be bigger than that, but I guess Kentucky is a good defense. So no bounce back for the Wildcats.
No.
Game number 2 is LSU at Auburn. LSU is a 3-point favorite.
Jeez,
You know
what a
what?
weird game that is.
That is a weird game. I've picked against Auburn like almost every game this year, and sometimes it's paid off, sometimes it hasn't. I
And
think
Auburn's the underdog in this. Where's it being played? At LSU?
At Auburn.
At Auburn. They're a home underdog to LSU.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking Auburn.
All right, give me LSU.
I know Kyle wanted to pick Auburn there.
I really didn't at all.
Really? Where were you going with that? I have picked against Auburn every
week, and I will
I'm going to do
continue
it again.
That's exactly what you did earlier about something. You were like framing something. It was when I asked you if you wanted to restore to the Big 12. You're like, I thought about it, and I still am going to stand by my decision. So I'm pulling the same trick.
Okay. It's a good diversion.
Okay, game number 3, Ole Miss at Vanderbilt. Ole Miss is a 16.5-point favorite.
Ole Miss by a million.
I agree. I've picked Ole Miss a lot this year so far.
16.5-point favorite. That's a lot. Vanderbilt's bad.
They bad.
Game number 4, Mississippi State at number 2, Alabama. Alabama is a 31-point favorite.
Oh, Mississippi State's had like an exodus of players. I think.
Yes,
they had,
I saw that.
Like Kylan Hill is like opting out and going to the NFL draft. He's like their star running back.
Yeah. So this has already been a long episode, but I'm going to take us on a slight tangent again.
Okay.
I told you before we started recording, I watched a video of like SEC, or not just SEC, but college football coaches losing their cool. And it showed, of course, Mike Leach losing his mind on a Texas Tech locker room back in the day.
And then posting a meme.
Yeah. But he was very upset. And I could totally see him coming to a new team and rubbing all the players the wrong way. And so when I saw that several players were transferring out, I immediately remembered that video of him just chewing everybody out. And I thought,
He'll do that.
Yeah, and with the way they've been playing this year, he probably hasn't been too happy in the locker room. So that honestly doesn't surprise me a ton.
He's an interesting cat.
Yeah.
Game number 5, Arkansas at number 8, Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 12.5-point favorite.
Number 8. Wow. I don't think A&M's that great, to be honest. I don't think they're the 8th best team in the country. They did beat Florida. I think that was a little lucky for them.
You've been low on them all year.
I have. I got to stay on brand, but I don't know if I got to stay on brand that much. It's Arkansas. I think actually that could be a really close game, but I'm going to pick A&M.
The only Arkansas beat Mississippi State, who sucks.
Yeah, they do.
Ole Miss, who doesn't suck at that much, and then a close game against Auburn. And
Auburn's
also,
overrated though.
True. They played Georgia. It was not close, 37-10.
Was close in the first half.
True, I remember that.
I think you should pick Arkansas.
Who are they playing again?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M.
Who's a fraud.
A fraud, Kyle says.
I'll pick them in this game, but they're a fraud.
There's no way I'm picking Arkansas.
Okay.
Where's it being played?
Texas A&M.
Kyle Field.
They're gonna pack it. Texas A&M by a million.
They're gonna pack Kyle Field.
That'll do it.
No Nebraska.
Wait a second.
Wait a second.
The Big Ten is back, folks. I thought.
They are.
Psych.
Wisconsin is not back home, folks, because COVID.
So Nebraska played one game.
Yep.
Got
they're
blown
done.
out of the water. Well, actually, they did okay.
Did they?
In the first half, they did okay.
They've
Second half,
they've got a
they-
McCaffrey. Nebraska plays one game and then the season's over.
It's done, I guess.
They're not playing again. I'm calling it.
21-day thing for the Big Ten.
That's
so
outrageous.
It is outrageous. So
It's unfair.
Graham Mertz
Just
and
put another tick in the outrageous column for the Big Ten.
Yeah. Thank goodness Missouri's not in the Big Ten. Jeez.
oh man,
You got room for one more
One more what?
team in the
Team in
SEC?
the
SEC.
Yeah, bring them in. We get a whole SEC North going on.
Like that.
Well, we'll see you next time, Nebraska. See you never.
See you never.
Well, guys, I think that wraps things up.
Think so?
Felt really good to talk about Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
Got a big game coming up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, one more thing I need to say. If you happen to be listening, probably not, but I need to give a special shout out to username Daniel Dingelis. That's the best I'm going to do on that.
Okay.
YouTube commenter
Okay.
said after the LSU game, on the episode we previewed the LSU game, offense looked good in the YouTube comments. What's special about it is his profile picture, one Christian McCaffrey. We've got a Panthers Mizzou fan out there, just like me,
Oh my.
who commented on the YouTube video. So I had to give that special shout out.
Wow. You guys
Just
are
like you.
best friends.
Just like me.
That's very special. Thank
we
you,
do
Daniel.
exist.
Is that why you wore the jersey today?
There's dozens of us. No, he's back, folks,
He's
off
back.
of IR. But probably not going to play this Thursday night. I wouldn't. It'd be surprising if he did.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Probably shouldn't.
Me and Cameron play each other in fantasy next week, so that means McCaffrey's gonna go off for like 35 points.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back, and all right, everybody, you can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
And watch the video on YouTube. Leave us a comment. I might talk about it next time. You never know.
Never know.
You can find t-shirts, stickers on our little online shop, MissouriSportsPod.bigcartel.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week. After one.